When I haven't created for a while, I feel like something's missing. There's just this buildup of energy that I'm not able to release in the way that I'm built to release it. I think that there's this common question with artists where it's like, oh, there's so much going on in the world, there's so much horror in the world. Why would something like art be meaningful? And I think it's absolutely meaningful because it is such a genuine practice, and it is something where you can channel your feelings of, whether it's rage or helplessness from whatever is happening in the world, and put it into art and inspire someone else. We're in my studio in East Williamsburg. This space represents New York because well, first of all, there's color everywhere, and I feel like I really pick up on the energy here. All of the different textures and colors and materials are just everywhere, which is what I need to create. I need to have things very easily accessible to me so I can just pick them up and I'm a third-generation artist. My earliest memory of creating art was actually in my house when I was in middle school, and we had these amazing portraits painted by my aunt in my house, and I took one off the wall that I really loved, and I made my own interpretation of that portrait, and I was like, oh, this is fun. I knew I wanted to study art and design, and so my parents sent me to a summer intensive at Parsons for high school students. The professor was Melinda Wax, and she was amazing. She would bring us to the garment district and envision ourselves living in New York as high school students, and I was like, I'm sold, I'm going here. So I studied communication design, and I was learning more about, general design thinking, I would say. Parsons being in New York was a really big draw for me to go to school here because I'm someone who really needs a lot of different hands-on experiences to understand what my next steps are. But being an artist is figuring out how to use yourself as like a conduit for what you're inspired by or what you're taking in. New York has shaped me as an artist. I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. I feel like once I tapped into the energy here and brought that into my practice, I was like, oh, I need to be in New York to produce what I produce because New York is a place of possibilities. Parsons is a unique college because it's part theory and part practice, and that is exactly how I still approach my practice today as an interdisciplinary studio artist. There was one class when I was in my undergrad that really stuck with me. Joel Towers' class called Global Issues in Design in the 21st Century really opened my eyes to what the impacts are of the materials that we produce in the art and fashion industry. And I remember this statistic really stuck out to me. Fashion industry produces 92 million tons of waste a year, which is the equivalent of one garbage truck of clothes being burned a second. And I remember that class really opening my eyes to, yes, we can make things, but also we need to know where they go afterwards. I've been a practicing artist for 10 years, and I've been developing many different techniques that I really put into my cooking, pot, if you will. So I don't limit myself to one material. I am really focused on how to bring specific techniques or materials or processes together to share my ideas. I'm a 100% sustainable artist. During the pandemic, I didn't have access to my studio. We were all kind of confined at home, and I need to make, that's like my life force. So I went into my closet and pulled things out that I could use as canvases. And without knowing it, I started making my first upcycled fashion collection through my old clothes. And then, when the pandemic ended, I noticed there was this huge community in New York of sustainable fashion designers and people who are bridging art and fashion like me. So 100% sustainable to me means two things. One is extending the life of things that already exist. So that in my practice would be upcycling clothing. So going to a thrift store or getting a donation from someone of clothes they don't wear anymore and then making that into something new. So we don't have to throw it away, but we can be reinvigorated by that piece. And then secondly, it is if I am making something new, like manufacturing a small batch collection, for example, I only use materials that are dead stock from bigger brands. For example, the day where someone who, fought tirelessly for women's rights passed away from cancer. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to focus on this woman who made an amazing legacy, Cecile Richards. I took a slip dress that I had sourced from a thrift store and painted her portrait on it. And that became the closing look to my fashion show. And I actually had the model wear a black veil, and it was an homage to Cecile Richards. And it really helped, a lot of people who recognize that look walking down the runway feel that healing and, moment of honoring her. I showed my collection at this gallery in Tribeca, and it was this really amazing, moment. The show was called A Defining Moment, and that was like a celebration of, I've made this collection. It's been years in the making. And then I brought that collection to Art Basel to be part of a runway show. When I leave the studio each day, I feel this sense of, it's like value. I feel a sense of pride in how I've used my time and energy and attention, and art is one of those things that always gives back to you.